Hello, my name is Tim Brage. I just thought I would share a really cool technique um, for creating depth of field in Blender, actually using a refraction shader, which is like part of the glass shader. Um, this team called, I think, Loica Studios. Um, in Santiago. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce that too. Anyway, they made this amazing video called TNT-LEGENDS. It's on Blender Nation. Basically, it shows a couple famous actors, but they're really amazing 3D models and rendering of these actors. I think from a bit from scans and a bit of um, modeling and texturing. Apparently, this was all done in Blender and rendered out in cycles. They have this really beautiful kind of shallow depth of field thing going on, and it just looks so good. They really did a fantastic job. Um, anyway, you can read about that. I'll put the link in the description. But he also goes into details on how they actually got this kind of depth of field. I thought they would have done it in like post processing depth of field using lens care or something, but no, they actually did it within Blender and a very different technique. So I just thought I'd share what I learnt, my interpretation of that. So I've just got my cube here. Delete the light. I'm just gonna add a plane and rotate it on X and Z axis and then bring it out a bit. So it kind of like occludes this cube. I'm gonna add a new material and go to refraction. You can probably leave the index of refraction at 1.45. I'm just going to jump into rendered mode. As you can see here, it's refracting the cube nicely. But what we want it to do is a little bit of roughness to diffuse the rays. I'm going to hit GZZ to move it on the local axis back towards the cube, so it's kind of clipping it. You can see how it's clipping it here. It looks a bit weird. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the Object Data tab. Under Ray Visibility, we're going to turn off Transmission, Shadow, Diffuse, and Glossy, and just leave the camera on. So that way it's only really affecting the camera rays. Turn up the roughness a bit, and then I'm going to go into the Color tab and turn that all the way up to white. So now you can't really see the plane at all anymore, but you can kind of see how it's blurring the cube. If we go off to the side, you can kind of see where the refraction is coming in. I'm not quite sure how to change that. We might be able to do use a glossy shader instead of a refraction shader for just the blur and no refraction, but I'm just going to leave it a refraction. I'm going to change the world to a gradient texture. I'm going to change it to radial, just so we can see it a bit better. There's our plane, there's our cube. It's kind of cutting it a little bit. And if I grab the plane and move it towards the camera, it blurs the cube a lot, and then we move it back a bit. And the really interesting bit is the point of intersection on the cube, the point that it is cutting, is the like the sharp point of the depth of field of the camera. The only difference is this is only going to be blurring whatever's behind that plane. Depth of field through a lens will blur a little bit in front and then a little bit behind. So you kind of have like this sweet spot of sharpness within blurred at the front and blurred at the back. This is different because we have only one blurring direction, which is backwards. But as you can see, the results are really amazing. I'm going to turn the roughness up just so we get a bit more blur. maybe move it forwards a little bit. One thing I think, I haven't really tested it too much, that's beneficial about this method is that if I render it now, this is rendering out at 50% of 1920 by 1080 and 10 samples. So that took 1.47 seconds to render. 10 samples isn't a lot, but you can see there's a bit of noise there, but it's not too bad. I'll put the render samples up to 100 and re-render. That rendered at 3.96 seconds, so 4 seconds. It's much smoother now. You have really crisp, sharp, in-focus lines, and then really nice deep blurring on the back corners of that cube. So the results really look actually quite fantastic. The one thing to compare it to would be the I'm just going to hide the plane from render and preview, would be Blender's own ray traced depth of field. So I'm just going to turn on the limits just to test this out, put it somewhere in the cube, and then change the f-stop to like 0.5, which is like unrealistically low, but kind of have to do that with the current camera setup. Maybe change the focal length. 0.1. Yeah, that's alright. And then change the distance a little bit. 8.5 meters. Now let's render that. Generally, I've had a lot of problems with stubborn noise. Like, no matter what, you can't seem to get the noise out of Blender's depth of field rendering. So that's where something like, so I'll just save that slot 1 and I'll re-render with no depth of field with the plane. That's where the plane method might be useful, in that you will get more control kind of over the depth of field, and then hopefully a little bit less noise. So I'm just looking at the differences here. I might drop the render back on slot 1 and drop the f-stop down to like 0.01. This is just because my scene dimensions are all screwed up, and so it's a bit weird. Maybe not 0.01, 0.05. Just to get like the similar kind of amount of blur. And go back to slot 2. The noise levels don't seem to be very different. I think it'd really depend. This isn't like a very good test, but it'd really depend on the kind of scene that you've got set up. One of the benefits of this plane method is, I'll just turn it on. You can really like just easily control what you want to be sharp, where you want it. You can animate it as it kind of like slowly slides in and cuts the mesh, and changes the blur. You can, like, because this is a physical plane, it's easier to animate and visualize, and you can preview it in the Cycles Render Previewer, and it's really quite amazing. So huge thumbs up to the team that produced that TNT-LEGENDS promo or advertisement. I think for a TV show that's coming up soon. Yeah, so I just thought I'd share that really interesting new technique of depth of field blur in Cycles. Thanks.